Howdy and welcome back to the Ineligibles podcast. My name is Will Stone. He's Chase Caldwell. He is Robert Behrens. We are 10 days away from the kickoff of Aggie football against New Mexico. We're 9 days if you're listening on the podcast. Yeah, it's finally here. Like, it's close enough where you can get excited, but there's still those 10 days to get through and try to find a way to entertain ourselves until then. But guys, are we feeling all right? Are we feeling good?
Feeling great. We have football on the TV this weekend. Granted, not all that great of games, but this weekend it starts. So it's glad to be back.
Yeah, man. Yeah. You got college football this weekend. I had my fantasy draft. We got NFL preseason. Like, football is back. It's not fully back yet, but we can always say that the off season's over.
Right. Yeah, I feel like this is a good time to have drafts. Like, I next calendar week. It's a good thing to pass the time and get to it, but I don't know, man. I'm pumped. Like, I'm pumped for week 0. Like, there's not a ton going on there. We don't have to spend too much on that. I can't even watch the USC game because I don't have the Pac-12 network, which I guess in 6 months I don't think anybody's gonna have the Pac-12 network. I think it's gonna go the way of the dodo. So, but
see if they have a 3-month free trial.
It's like Sirius XM where they just like beg you to do a free trial.
Yeah, it's like, I'm just trying to sign up for a TV network. Why am I being asked to sign a 10-year grant of rights?
Like, aren't y'all gonna cease to exist next year? Like, what's going on here?
I don't want to get too bogged down in this, but is the ACC signing a 20-year TV deal like the dumbest decision of all time? Like, let's go ahead and lock ourselves into this like super cheap price for almost the length of a mortgage. Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of those where, it's like, I think you got the two sides of the coin, because on the one side, like, FSU and Clemson might already be gone if it wasn't for that, really long TV deal. But I mean, but for all we know, like, if they didn't have such a long TV deal, maybe they would have already re-upped and they would have already like increased their revenues to where they're on par with SEC, Big Ten, and no one's even considering leaving. So
yeah, exactly.
All the like realignment stuff, especially because all of it seems to devolve around TV money. It gets so tiresome after a while, because it's like, it's not even about college football. It's just about the TV networks maximizing their TV windows and maximizing their ad revenue.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Robert, I think the last time we had you on, it may have been like at the very beginning of fall camp or right before it started. Mm-hmm. So with fall camp, being kind of in our rearview mirror as game week is almost upon us. Like, what's your overall feel for this A&M team? I saw you put out a good article today. It was a great pun in the headline too. It's very on brand for your work.
The duality of 12th man.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll kind of touch on what I talked about in there, and it's mostly just that I feel like this team, more so than any A&M team I can remember, we kind of, we're now, like you said, only 10 days from the start of the season, and I still feel like we don't have a good handle on exactly what we're going to see. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we'll talk a lot about it today. Like, there's lots of reasons to be optimistic. A lot of that came from the offseason, and a lot of that's been perpetuated through fall camp. But as a fan and someone that is on the outside looking in, until you see it on the field, you don't know what that product is going to look like. And, and specifically, like, are we going to see all of those problems that persisted last season carry over, or are we going to see those get improved? But I feel like we've been getting good vibes out of fall camp. I always try to remember what previous years were like, because, this is the time of year where everything's rosy and everyone's talking about how much their team has improved and how much they like the way things are going. So I try to take that with a grain of salt. But, at this point, all you can do is cross your fingers and hope that it's not all just puff pieces and them, them hyping us up, for the fall later, and that we're actually going to see a big improvement from this team. And luckily, in 10 short days, we will finally start finding out.
Yeah, I think part of that comes from that we had such high expectations going into last year, and then had really our worst year since we've been in the SEC. So then it by all accounts, it should have been the best year since we've been in the SEC, and it was the worst year. So that polarity that it created then makes it to where it's going in this year. I have no idea. On paper, we should improve considerably because, well, we have a lot of talent, but that was the same reason why last year we thought we would improve considerably. So I think I hate to use the term battered Aggie syndrome, but I think it's part of that too. We don't know because we were just really shocked last year, I think.
Yeah. And I don't even know if that's battered Aggie syndrome either. I think that's just, trying to have some amount of rationality of, because there's tons of reasons why this team could be really good. And I was saying in 2021 that 2023 was the year. Like, going into last season, I was saying like, okay, this team could be good. Like 2023 should be the time when they like really hit their stride and they like really can accomplish something. But you have to acknowledge that no matter how positive you may be, like last year happened, and last year was in a lot of ways pretty inexplicable. And so you have to leave open the possibility of, like, we might just suck again. We hope we don't. We don't. Most of us don't think we will, but it's on the table.
Well, and that's a really fair point, because even going into last year, we kept saying like 23 and 24 with this team should be really, really good. But we've got the talent where we could do it now, and so like we were like tempering our expectations going into the year, saying it might still be a good year, but really next year is going to be the year that we see it. And so here we are, right? So
I think I said at one point that like if the ball bounced the right way for us last year, they could have competed for a title. And I said going into this year, I would expect them to compete for a title. Definitely don't feel that way anymore. Have backed off at least a little bit from that. I've got a similar like win-loss expectation, but like with a different tone, I guess. Like last year was more like pie in the sky, like, oh, we're gonna be awesome, like very like confident and bravado. But now I'm like, hey, like this team should be really good. If they're not, we got to make some changes or do something else, because like I expect like I've got the same expectation level, but the feeling behind it has changed. It's like, last year it's like, oh, we're gonna have Jimbo for a decade, we're gonna be in the playoff perennially. Now it's like, hey, this is a very pivotal year, and we got to go show something right now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't know. That might be. I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but we'll get to that whenever you give your hot take. When we get into hot takes, I'm gonna give mine that has to do with that.
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed because like I feel like my take was hot like 2 weeks ago, and now it's not that hot. But it's a teaser for our listeners, because we're not quite to that segment yet.
Really, what you're saying is you got struck while the iron's hot.
That's right. Yeah, I should have thrown it out there 2 weeks ago when we recorded it. But no, like it's definitely that time of year where every fan base is, trying to find the silver linings and be positive. I checked on the Arkansas board yesterday. They all think that they're going to win 10 games. It's the best D-line they've had in decades, and I'm like, maybe, but I'm not sure how reasonable that is. I'm not sure how reasonable my expectations for my own team are. But I guess let's start with a couple of preseason superlatives. Let's start with offensive breakout player. So guys that I think would not fall into this are like an Evan Stewart, and that's probably it on offense. Like everyone else, Ainias, Moose, like he's kind of broken out already. But anyone else is pretty much on the table. So does anybody want to go first there? Has anyone got a strong opinion?
I would say one of the tight ends, for obvious reasons. With the injury at that position, I think you'll see one of them come on strong. But that's just kind of been Jimbo's MO. We have tight ends come on and they can play early. They jump onto the scene a lot of times.
I'm going to take the obvious one, and the one that if you're an Aggie fan, you've heard a lot about over this offseason, and that's Noah Thomas. sophomore wide receiver. I think he 6'6"? Is that right?
Yeah.
And like all reports are, I mean, the guy was the spring MVP. Basically, people just saying that he just basically is borderline unguardable. So if you can pair him with Evan Stewart, Moose, Anias, that suddenly becomes a pretty lethal wide receiver combination if we can have any kind of a semblance of a functional offense this year.
Yeah. Like he's a guy that every outlet has talked about. At the open practice, it was very obvious. His talent level was very obvious. Insane catch radius, can catch a ball in traffic. If it gets near him, he's gonna haul it in, and he can create separation too. So I'm very pumped to see him. I'm thrilled to see the tight ends as well. Mine may be a cop out, and y'all can tell me if it is, because I've got a backup just in case. But I'm picking Connor Wigman, and he hasn't been announced as the starter yet. We expect that he will be. Played a little bit last year. Had 2 starts that were very good, 2 that were pretty forgettable. But in my opinion, and just just from watching him with my own eyes, and like just his ability, and especially what he has around him, I think by the end of the year he could be a top 3 quarterback in this league. He could be the best quarterback in this league. That may be too much to ask of a true sophomore in a new system. Hopefully the O-line is at a level to, let him have success. But he's a recruit that I've been more excited about than pretty much anybody else in the past, I don't know, 5 or 10 years. So I feel like we've been starved for a great quarterback since Johnny, and we've had good quarterbacks, but I think he's that guy to really, elevate us to that next step and be that guy that everyone around the country talks about. That's the best quarterback in that league.
Yeah,
I agree wholeheartedly.
And I think he absolutely counts as a breakout candidate, because even amongst people that are assuming he's the starter, you see SEC QB rankings out there, and they have Wegman in the bottom half of the conference.
Yeah.
Which I agree. I think they're going to end up looking foolish by the end of the year. And you talk about he was kind of hot and cold in his starts last year, somewhat pun intended, because his 2 poor starts were exceptionally cold weather.
Yeah.
But the good news is, based on my experience this summer, it will never be cold here again. So we should be in good shape.
Man, we should be undefeated at home with our weather that we have.
Isn't that the truth?
My backup was Cam Dewberry. I think he's got the ability to be like an all-conference level guard. At the open practice, he was the only O-lineman that I saw Coach Adazio give a fist bump to. So I'm very excited about what he can do. All right, this one may be a little more difficult just because there's so many guys on this side of the ball that could do this. But as far as defensive breakout player, is there anybody that stands out there?
Is it fair to say Tony Grimes?
Yeah, I think it's fair.
I mean, he's new to our team. I think that would be my guy that I'm most excited to see. Right. Because I've followed him. I've said this on the podcast several times, but followed him his whole career until now. So it's kind of cool for me to see one of those guys. Most times when you get a transfer, you might be familiar with the player, but a lot of times they're coming from a school. You don't really know too much about them. You got to go do some research on him. He's one that I've been watching since he was in high school. And so I'm excited about him. I think he'll be a breakout on our D-line or defense.
For me, I think the easy answer, once again, that I'm going to just take the easy way out, is Bryce Anderson. We think he's coming into that nickel cornerback role that we had Antonio Johnson playing for the past 2 years, and I'm just such a huge Bryce Anderson fan. I think in the limited time that we saw him on the field last year, it just seemed like every time he was out there, he made plays. So he's a guy that I can't wait to see what he can do this year.
Yeah, he's such a baller. He seems like one of those guys that by the end of the year you could talk about him as oh, this might be the best player on our team. He's extremely talented. I'm going to pick a D lineman because of course I am. And there's so many to pick from, but I'm going to go with Shabar Turner. He came in like we signed a bunch of 5-stars in the 22 class, but he was a 5-star in the 21 class, and he's been here for a bit. I kind of thought he might stay at end when he got here, and then he played inside a little bit and was hurt a little bit and has played well at times. But since he moved outside, I think he's a little bit trimmer. In the spring game, I thought he really flashed at end. In the open practice, I thought he really flashed him more, and we're hearing some more things about him. So I don't know if he's going to be like a 12-sack kind of guy, but he's a guy that I think will provide some pass rush, can play the run extremely well, and just be kind of that, like that veteran and that leader on the defensive line, along with McKinley Jackson, who has definitely already broken out. But
sure,
great picks, guys. Last one for player. Well, unless your hot take is a player, but our last player superlative is freshman of the year for A&M.
It's a tough one because there's
hard.
no. I feel like this is the first year in a while where there's no clear cut. Like, okay, this freshman is probably going to start day one.
Yeah.
Because you've got several guys that I think that are competing for spots. But there's just no like really obvious one. I think for me, I'm actually going to go maybe a little bit outside the box. I'm going to say Dalton Brooks, because he was a guy that I like. I love his high school tape, and so there may be a scenario where he really doesn't see the field this year, just because A&M's already pretty well set up at DB, but I wouldn't be surprised if he either sees some time at safety, or maybe even you see Bryce Anderson end up at safety and Dalton Brooks in that nickel spot, because like his high school tape looked amazing, and you see him in fall camp, and we're only seeing tiny little snippets of it, but man, he looks like a guy who's ready to come in and play in the SEC for sure.
He does, yeah. I like that pick a lot.
Yeah, I'd probably say Ruben Owens. I think in that there's a bit of a vacuum in the running back space from losing A-Chain, and I think you see a lot of mobility at that position. I think you see a lot of them coming in on and off, and I could really see him getting some serious playing time. And I just think he's a super talented player,
Yeah, sounds like he's really started to flash in practice. Definitely has the speed and ability to catch the ball as a running back and make big plays. I changed my mind like 10 seconds ago on mine. I was going to say David Hicks, and I know that we're loaded at defensive line, and like whenever we signed David Hicks, I was like, oh, yeah, that's a good get. Another 5-star D lineman to go with all the other 5-star D linemen. But that kid is a violent and ferocious defensive lineman. Would not shock me at all if he gets in games and makes an impact as a true freshman. But I'm going to go with Torian York, the linebacker from Temple.
I almost went with him.
Same here.
Yeah. Which kind of reminds me of Anias in the sense that he may have been like one of the last 2 or 3 guys in the class like that we went out and offered or like at least like made a push for. Mm-hmm. And just like is never going to have like Luke Kuechly or I'm trying to think like a Devin White type athletic profile, but just a smart physical downhill football player, a true middle linebacker, I think, at least between the ears, and with the way he's able to play. Jimbo said he says that he's 13 going on, or he's 18 going on 30. He's very mature for his age, and that's a spot that we had good play there for a minute. Dipped a little bit last year, and there's guys that are all competing there. So it's a spot where I'm a little bit nervous to play a true freshman, but if you have to, I wouldn't mind at all having a guy like Torian York step in there.
Yeah, and that's one of those guys that's if you watch his high school tape, well, just his high school stats, he had I don't remember the number, but he had just absurd number of tackles,
like triple digits,
junior and senior year. Yeah. And you watch the tape, and the athletic ability, the measurables don't blow you away, but he was just always in the right spot. And with a linebacker, maybe more than any other position, that's more important than just about anything.
Sure.
And honestly, as much as I hate to make this comparison, you can draw a lot of parallels to that win with that guy.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
Like undersized, under recruited, but
was that 5'9"?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And but just a guy that just like makes up for it with effort and football IQ.
Yeah.
And there's internet murmurings that York may be starting day one.
There's some chatter out there.
Yeah, I've seen that
in the interwebs.
Yeah.
All right,
very, very unconfirmed.
Yeah. We're not breaking any news here on this podcast.
It is not properly sourced.
All right, let's hear those hot takes.
All right, so my hot take I was going to say earlier, sorry to cut you off there, but my hot take is that even if we go 8-4 this year, I
don't like where this is going.
I don't think that Jimbo goes on the hot seat. That's where I say it's a hot take simply because like I have a feeling that everybody's like, okay, this is the year you have to perform, otherwise Jimbo's out of there. But I could see, especially with how we've signed him for 10 years and all that kind of stuff, that we get an 8-4 season, then it's just going to be like, okay, well, we'll continue to build, and there will be some grace there where he's not shown out of the building. Now we go 6-6. I don't know.
That's kind of on a different story on the cut line for me. There's people that think he gets let go at 8-4. I just don't. I don't believe that at all. I mean,
I don't either. That's what I'm trying to say.
I would agree there too. I think because there's like three tiers. There's if you go 9-3 or better, I think everyone says, hey, that was a good season. Like we recovered completely from last year. The future's bright. Let's go. 8-4 is kind of the territory no one wants to be in, because you're saying, okay, that still wasn't that great, but it also wasn't bad enough to pay $70+ million to fire you.
Right.
Whereas if you're 7-5 again, I think he's gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 8-4 is in some ways is like the worst thing you could possibly be this year.
Yeah. Our old nemesis.
Yeah. We meet again.
Yeah. So mine, and like I said before, I feel like it's not a hot take as it would have been maybe before fall camp started, but I think the A&M offense is going to be better than the A&M defense. So that typically has not been the case under Jimbo. We've had times where they're both good. We've had times when the defense is borderline elite and the offense is kind of average. Or last year where the defense was average and the offense was horrible. And I know that memory of last year's offense is still ingrained in the mind of fans and media members and everyone. And I think that's fine that it is. But when I look at the amount of talent that has been accumulated, especially at receiver and quarterback, and really running back too, I think the O-line will take a big step forward this year, given that they have good health. And Petrino, I know that there's been some consternation on the who's running the offense. I think it's Petrino's offense. I think, I'm sure Jimbo has input here and there, but it's ultimately Bobby calling, he's calling the shots and, doing his install. And I think it looks wildly different to a certain extent. And points, and I don't want to knock on the defense here. I think they're going to be very, very good. But, at the end of the day, I think when you look back in December, we're going to be like, man, we had a really damn good offense.
Yeah, I don't think that's that hot of a take. Like you said, it's getting cooler, but I think it would still qualify though, because that's we got a really good defense. So if you're right, which I hope you're right, it'll be a really fun year.
Yeah. Well, see, there's also the monkey's paw scenario where you're correct, but it's only because the defense was so bad.
Our offense is ranked 75th. Our defense is 100. Yeah, definitely not ideal.
All right. Well, for mine, I'm going to go pretty controversial, guys. So everyone sit down. I predict that A&M will beat not one but 2 Mississippi schools this year.
Oh.
And it's very sad that could all be considered a hot take.
Given our track record, it is very hot. It's a scalding
kind of been
hot
a thing
take.
we haven't done very much. And I don't even know if that's so much like something that I'm like firmly believing that'll happen as much as it's just something I really want to happen. So I just want to speak it into existence.
Yeah.
Because I'm no one ever likes losing Mississippi State as much as I actually think they're going to be a sneaky good team this year. But I think A&M fans in general, we would all really love to beat Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm definitely 100%. On track with that.
100%.
I think they call that manifesting when you try to speak it into existence.
Yeah.
No, I would. It is a hot take just due to history, and I think like I hate playing at Ole Miss. I hate playing at Mississippi State even more. Like we never do well over there. But anytime we go to Oxford, it's typically there's typically a fight on our hands. So but both should be tough. But hopefully, well, I was gonna say hopefully all of our takes come true. Hopefully Chase's doesn't come true and we don't go 8-4. Man, like if we beat the Mississippi schools, who we lose to go 8-4? I don't even want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Any broader SEC thoughts outside of A&M? Teams you think may do well in the West or well in the East?
Man, more than anything, I feel like the West is so. It's not wide open, but it's more wide open than it's been in quite a while because Bama is still going to be very good, but feels like maybe the most vulnerable they've been since we've been in the SEC. And then everyone throws out LSU as kind of the other elite team in the division.
Right.
But as we just saw in November of last year, that that team has its own flaws. So it's exciting for an A&M fan because it definitely feels like a year where if you can put something together, if you can string together some wins, it could be a year where the West is there for the taking. As opposed to we've had years where it's like in 2012, we went 6-2, we finished third in the West. In 2020, we went 8-1 in the SEC and we still finished second in the West.
Yeah.
So it feels like a year where maybe you could sneak in there and not have to be undefeated.
Yeah, I was listening to the Texags podcast with Lucci and David Nuno, and they were kind of doing their predictions. And I think it was Billy that like his prediction was a 3-way tie for the West, and I was like, that's totally plausible. I mean, like,
yeah,
absolutely.
You could have like three, like A&M, Alabama, and LSU all be like 10-2, or maybe like one of them is 9-3 with two conference losses, and they just all kind of beat each other. And you have to go like, I'm pretty sure that happened to A&M in 2010 in the Big 12, where they split with OU and Oklahoma State, maybe.
Yeah.
So you could see something like that, where like there's 3 like legitimate contenders for the West, but like none of them are elite. I don't think any of them are.
I could absolutely see that this year. I just we talked about this last week, but our schedule it's one of the more favorable schedules I think that we've had in the Jimbo era. It might be the most favorable that we've had since Jimbo's been here. So like just the way that it progresses, I think this is a really good year for us based on where other teams are and how winnable the SEC is this year, that we should do well, with where we're at with our team and how everything sets out. It should be a year that there's not that, 3-headed monster that we're going against that we just have no chance against. Because I just don't see that on any of the teams that we face. So I think it's a very winnable schedule, and one that, I'm with you there. I think you could see a 3-way tie very easily in the West.
Yeah, and there's certainly losable games on the schedule.
Sure,
for sure. I think especially if you got Alabama and Tennessee back to back could be brutal, depending on what Tennessee does this year. I know it seems like folks are kind of divided on what that team is going to be and how much of a step back they're going to take.
I've got no idea what to expect from them.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people still are tabbing them as second in the East, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I think Kentucky could come up and overtake them. I think I'm kind of sneaky high on Mizzou doing well in the East this year. Because I think they return like the most production in the SEC outside of A&M.
Yeah.
And last year I think they were 6-6, and they had several games that they just like gave away. So they were actually better
Georgia
than their
down to the
record book
wire
last year.
Yeah,
they took Georgia down to the wire. They like against Auburn. I think they had a fumble at the goal line and then a missed field goal. You know, that was like an embarrassment of a game to lose.
They definitely should. I remember watching that one. Yeah.
I feel like that could be one of
Kentucky.
those teams that like they go like 9-3, and then we all look back and we're like, why didn't we see that coming?
Yeah.
It does seem like everyone's just penciled in Tennessee, and they certainly could be, you know, like a juggernaut type team that just scores on everybody. But I'm with you on Kentucky. That's who I would kind of pick to be the number 2 team in the West. They brought their OC back from 2 years ago that they had success with. They got a great transfer quarterback in Devin Leary. Really great receivers over there, like a sneaky good receiver room in the conference. And I think a lot of like their schedule sets up pretty nice with their home and away split. And I don't think they have anybody too tough from the West. So that's a team that I'm keeping an eye on in terms of the SEC East standings. Was that all we had there? Anything else?
I mean, so.
I would like to see us win the West just because it's the last year that the SEC
That's
West
right.
exists. So just to put that notch on our belt and say that we did it.
Yeah,
that's true.
So let's just do it.
We've got eternal scoreboard.
Yeah.
Real quick before we get into questions, I wrote down playoff picks. If y'all don't have a top 4 set out, that's fine.
I don't personally.
I guess mine's kind of hot takey, but not too much. I don't think either of Alabama, Clemson, or Ohio State make the playoff this year. If I had to pick 4, I'd pick Georgia, Michigan, Penn State, and USC.
All
right. I'm somewhat similar to you. I got Georgia, USC, Penn State, but then I actually threw in Clemson. If you asked me 4 months ago, I would have said Florida State, but I feel like I was like I got on the hype train, and then I kind of have pulled back on that a little bit. I feel like they still have a little bit to prove.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And plus they have to play LSU in the first game, so that could be tough for their playoff hopes.
Yeah.
All right, we got a pretty good batch of questions here. Let me pull this tab over. First one, I've got to go with my guy Pierce. Pierce listens to all of our stuff and is always asking good questions. So we definitely appreciate your support, Pierce. He asked if you had to trade Wigman and Petrino for another QB and OC duo, who would it be? My first thought was Caleb Williams and whoever the OC is at USC.
Well, I mean, essentially Lincoln Riley is the OC
right.
at USC. So yeah, I think that one's a no-brainer because that was the first one that popped into my head. I'm trying to think, like, what would number 2 be?
I personally would like Michael Penix Jr. I think he's a really good quarterback. And then I don't know as much in terms of OC and the coach, but I know that his OC went with him or is now, I guess, his head coach at Washington, the DeBoer.
Yeah.
So
when I think their actual OC Grubb was I think us and Bama both tried to hire him this offseason.
Really?
And he stuck at Washington. So that's actually one that I wrote down for mine was Penix and Washington's OC. I thought about Bo Nix and Will Stein is the Oregon OC. He was at UTSA for the past couple years, but I don't want Bo Nix to be my quarterback. I don't think. I know he looked great last year, and maybe he's a really good quarterback, but I don't know. It's there's just not a lot of dominant college quarterbacks out there right now.
Yeah. One other I'll throw out there I think would be a decent one. I'm not sure I would trade it, but it's another candidate. Is over at Clemson with Garrett Riley and Cade Klubnik.
Yeah.
That has the potential to be a pretty lethal combo.
That's good.
And I mean, and I know we all don't want to say it, but Sark and Quinn Ewers is certainly on that list as well.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Yeah. I'd also have J.J. McCarthy at Michigan and Sharon Moore. I think he's a really good OC. I like what they do up there. Someone posted the other day that J.J. McCarthy was on play action plays. He had the #1 QBR in the country, and on non-play action, he was like 55th. So I think they definitely do a good job of playing to his strengths, but you'd like to see that the non-play action come up just a little bit from 55. But I think he's a pretty good quarterback.
But I mean, I do feel like though, of all that list we just named, the only one for me that was like a slam dunk no-brainer, yes, I would do that trade tomorrow, is USC.
Yeah.
Every other one, like you could make the case, but you could also sit there and be like, well, I don't know. It's like,
yeah.
Each have pros and cons.
Yeah, like I'll just take my chances with Connor and Petrino.
Yeah. Which that honestly to me just like the thought process of kind of going through who would I trade it for really makes me excited about Wigman and Petrino because I'm like, man, we might have one of the best combos out there,
Yeah.
If I hadn't just watched, I watched the replay of whatever ball game that Texas played Washington in. And if I hadn't watched that, I would be all in on Penix. But the way he throws the football just is so uncomfortable looking to me. Like it's like a roller coaster just watching him go through his throwing motion and throw the ball. Like it works out more often than not. But I'm not sure if my A&M heart could handle that if that was my quarterback. Any pick for way too early Heisman?
Well, if the billboards are to be believed, it's Bo Nix.
I love that teams are doing that again. I think it's so cool.
I'm trying to think who might jump up there. Because once again, the easy answer is Caleb Williams because he's the defending Heisman winner.
Right.
But that almost never happens.
Maybe like a Blake Corum at Michigan.
Yeah, that could be a good one.
Although their backup is also really good.
Yeah, I know, but it's time for a non-quarterback to win.
Yeah,
I kind of have a feeling if there's a year for a non-quarterback to win, it's this year.
Yeah, because this year you have Williams, and then I feel like you've got a lot of good, but not like elite name quarterbacks.
Yeah, like I think Penix and Bo Nix both are going to have like good years, but not like, oh my god, like that's a Heisman level, year. How about Brock Bowers?
Ooh, that'd be a fun one.
Or actually, sorry, my other one is I think more so than him is probably Marvin Harrison Jr. Just for like the school he plays for and how good he is. The NFL scouts are just salivating over his ability, like best receiver in the last 15 years type of stuff. So he's definitely a guy that could just put up like I forgot what like the numbers that Devontae had the year he won the Heisman, but could definitely be similar to that.
I don't know, man. Something's really appealing though about a tight end winning the Heisman.
Yeah, it'd be really cool. And Bowers is so dang good; like he could definitely accomplish that.
It's amazing he still has eligibility. I feel like he's been playing for Georgia for like 5 years.
Yeah,
that's how a lot of these guys are. Bo Nix, like I feel like he's 30 years old.
Yeah, he probably actually is though. he's probably at least like 23 or 24. Any coaches on the hot seat at this time?
I think Neil Brown at West Virginia is probably one because that's one like they were pretty bad last season. So I feel like he might be the one that it feels like every year now we have a coach fired in like September.
Mm-hmm.
So he might be one of those candidates where it's really kind of the Kevin Sumlin scenario. I know we didn't fire someone in September, but kind of that's when that decision was made.
Yeah.
Where it's like when you already go in knowing like, okay, if things like go badly at all, this is probably over. That might be one.
Yeah, I think West Virginia plays Penn State in the non-con, and if Penn State beats them like 55-0, like it could be let's just go ahead and call it.
Yeah.
Or if they do that and then lose their first Big 12 game to whoever it is, I don't know, like Cincinnati or Baylor or somebody. You could say Jimbo, just if things were to get really bad, but it wouldn't be in the middle of the season.
No way.
I don't think that's
dude,
on the table.
We have to make it till January 1st.
Yeah, that's true. At least take $9 million off of that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think like who else might be on that list.
I think maybe Justin Wilcox at Cal, and Cal like who knows what they're gonna do. Like I bet they actually keep him just for some sense of stability, with like not knowing what conference they're gonna be in. He's pretty solid, but it's hard to win at Cal. In terms of SEC, there's nothing that really comes to mind unless like if Sam Pittman, if they tank this year and go like 5-7, his seat could get hot. It's not hot right now at all, I don't think. But if they kind of have a down year, I could see that.
Yeah, another situation that's similar to Jimbo is Mel Tucker at Michigan State.
Yeah,
I thought about that too. Yeah,
because very similar. Like they signed essentially the exact same contract 18 months ago. They both went 5-7 last year, and so I think he's in a very similar situation where if they suck again this year, they have to make a tough call of like, do we want to pay this man that much money just to go away?
Yeah. I know that people talk about Jimbo's contract all the time, but the Mel Tucker one, it's got to be the worst one that I've seen. I know what's his face at Notre Dame, Charlie Weiss. I think his was pretty bad, but that's been so long ago. It couldn't have been on the just sheer amount in terms of dollars that Mel Tucker got. And after one good year too.
Yeah, because people talk about Jimbo. Yeah, he got the extension after finishing number 4 in the country, but more importantly, like he was already someone who had won multiple conference titles, who had won a national title. So like you weren't basing it solely on that one good year. You were basing it on that compounded by, like the recruiting and the success at his previous stop.
Sure.
Tucker got the same deal and his resume pales in comparison to Jimbo's. So
yeah.
Also, maybe Mac Brown at North Carolina.
Yeah.
They had a top 5 pick at quarterback last year, which they'll have again this year, but they went 8-4, I think. He's getting on up there in age. He's been on up there in age, but he's just, he's not getting any younger. And I could see them maybe he probably wouldn't get fired. He'd probably resign or retire or whatever else.
Yeah.
This was interesting. I'm actually trying to think of one right now, but is there a non-A&M transfer that you are excited to watch on their new team?
No. I'm trying to think.
I'm excited for Chris Marshall at Ole Miss. Sorry, I had to do
it. He'll be with Damon Demas at Garden whatever soon enough.
Yeah, isn't I don't know if you guys remember this. I can't even think of it. Terrence Lewis, the linebacker from the state of Florida. I think him and Demas are on the same team.
They are. I saw that too.
If there was ever a time to bring Last Chance U back, it's right now.
Yeah.
Go up to Garden City.
I'm trying to remember what the other major transfers were. I think one of them could be, you talked about it earlier, Devin Leary at Kentucky.
Yeah.
Just because, you bring a guy who's already very, very accomplished and bring him into the SEC just to see what he's going to be able to do.
Right.
Because that'll kind of determine what Kentucky's ceiling is this year.
I'd be curious to see. I'd kind of forgotten about this because this was so early on in the off season, but Travis Hunter going to Colorado and like all the stuff going on in Colorado, like
that's a great one.
Be curious to see how Colorado is this year.
You know what? I take it all back. When the question was first asked, the answer should have been the entire Colorado roster.
That's a better. That's
Deion Sanders.
Essentially what I meant. Travis Hunter was my figurehead for that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And 64 other players.
Yeah.
No, I'm really curious if Hunter plays both ways, like full time up there, or if he's like a DB primarily and like just plays a little bit of receiver. But
I mean, really, truly, I think he might kind of do what Deion Sanders did when he was in Dallas, where they deploy him as a receiver, but it's more in like special packages. It's not like a full-time role. Just because, I mean, I don't care how well you're conditioned, you can't play full-time DB and full-time receiver. That just seems impossible.
Yeah. This one's from my my good buddy Matt Barnes, who I saw this weekend in Phoenix. But he asked, in terms of A&M, like which positions are major strengths on the team?
I hate this question because my first thought is always defensive line because of how we've recruited, and it's hard to argue. Like we've got some studs there, but the run defense last year was so atrocious. And that one, that was kind of the weakness of the defense last year. So it's hard for me to reconcile those two.
Yeah.
I'm with you there.
I think I'd pick receiver.
Yeah.
Like when I look around, like I know the LSU receivers, but when you match them up 1-to-1, like I wouldn't trade ours for theirs, to be honest. I wouldn't trade Evan Stewart for pretty much anybody else except for like Marvin Harrison Jr. or, like someone else that's on that just super elite level. But I think like the talent and depth that we have there is extremely impressive.
Yeah. I'm a bit worried about the depth at receiver. Like our top four, I'm with you. Our top four, I'd put up against just about anybody. I do worry because like behind that, you're very quickly relying on either unproven transfers or true freshmen.
Right.
And hey, like there's reason to think we've seen practice clips of Ja'Day Walker that look pretty incredible. So there could be still some players there. But if it's one of those times where the injury bug hits that position disproportionately, it could get dicey pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And maybe not and maybe not dicey, but just very unproven.
Sure. No, I agree with you there. But one thing I would say is a strength, maybe not a major strength, but a minor strength of our team is our tight end position, because I feel like we're really deep there. And so in the event that happens, that kind of helps with the receiver position, because we might go more tight end packages, and kind of alleviate some of that stress there.
I can see that. I mean, like, as much as I love Donovan, in terms of the rankings and recruiting, Jay Johnson was the number one tight end in the country in that class. Mm-hmm. I think Theodore has as much athletic upside as anybody else, on the roster. And it sucks to lose Donovan, but, he played well as a freshman last year. They've got a really good freshman this year in Jaden Platt, who, has looked impressive so far and could find his way on the field at some point.
Yeah. And if you want to talk about depth, like running back is a place where, like we actually could like sustain an injury or two and probably be just fine, just because I think we all know Amari Daniels, Le'Veon Moss, Ruben Owens is the top three. But even behind that, you've got Ernest Crownover, who's I think he's in year 3 in the system now.
Yeah, he's been there for a minute.
Who, probably more of a goal line back, but still very serviceable. And I think people are forgetting about David Bailey, that transfer, that he's another, like, he's a big bodied dude, but I mean he can run, he can make plays. And so it's always nice to know that, because you're gonna sustain injuries, you're not gonna get out of every season injury free. So to have positions like that where you can say, like, okay, like if we lose this guy or lose that guy, it sucks, but I think we'll still be okay.
I think back to, I think it was 2015 and Trey Carson had to play like all the running back snaps, and he was hurt, but like he just wasn't as hurt as the other guys, and he just had to carry like the whole like all the carries for the team. I am curious how they get used, but as far as depth and just overall like team strength, I think running back's a great decision there. I do want to clarify that I said I wouldn't trade receiver rooms. I would definitely trade with Ohio State. I do want to make that clear. I don't think our receiver room is better than theirs. That like when you look at like 1 through 12, like they had a guy transfer that was a 5-star because he was like 11th on their depth chart. It's filthy what they've done at the receiver position. This one comes from at Aggie Stan, or I should say at Aggie_Stan with 2 N's. With the outlook of having a more stable offense, do you think being able to sustain drives will help the defense, mainly the run defense?
I do.
I think it'll help the defense overall for sure. Run defense in particular may not make a huge difference, but I mean, just the fact that if you can actually win time of possession, because I honestly have no idea what the stats are. I feel like we probably hardly ever won time of possession last year.
Yeah.
And that was like a hallmark of the Jimbo offense.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was. His whole offense is predicated on that. He's like super good at doing that normally, but last year, yeah, I'm with you. It seemed like we were going a lot of 3 and out, and just it couldn't get any momentum there. And that's where I feel like Petrino. I said this last week, where Petrino. I don't know that you see just an entirely different offense. Like I think you see a pretty standard offense of what we've seen with some additional little things here and there, but it's really more of the times when we're down. Like Jimbo's offenses are great when we're up by a touchdown. You know, if we're playing from ahead, we it's great. We always win the time of possession. Everything's great. But if we're playing from behind, it just doesn't have that quick speed. And so that's where I think our offense will uptick to where we will, even in times of us being down, we might be able to, score quicker. Because I feel like everything that we did when it comes to offensive stability, even if we were down by 2 scores, we're eating up the clock all the way down, and sure we get a touchdown, but we're still behind, and so that idea really works when we're ahead. But really what I think the new stability that we're giving this offense is if we need to play from behind, we can.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It felt like in the past where if you got down 2 scores, you're like, man, do we have enough in the tank to create big plays or be able to mount a comeback in this thing? I think you definitely will see that with Petrino, and I think it's going to help the defense. I think because I think it will be pretty efficient, like to the point where we're not there. There shouldn't be a lot of 3 and outs. I don't think. I think that really was a hindrance on the defense last year. We kind of answered this one already from Dan Shum on Twitter. It says, what does the tight end position look like without Donovan Green? But he also asked about the expectations for the offensive line this season.
It's a tough one to know. I mean, because I've talked a lot this offseason that you can look at like from 2019 to 2020. In 2019, offensive line was the weakness of the team. Kellen Mond was just getting sacked left and right. And then a year later, they brought back the same 5 guys, and it was maybe the best offensive line we've seen since 2012 Johnny Manziel era. And so you hope that maybe they can replicate that same success, because it's a year where you're bringing back all 5 guys just like you did that time. You're in the second year of your position coach, just like they were at that point. So there's lots of reasons why you could say this group's hopefully going to be healthier too. And could take a big leap forward. But kind of like we said at the beginning of the podcast, but what if they don't?
Yeah.
Because they did not look good for pretty much the entirety of last season. And no matter what Petrino does or what Wegman or the receivers or anyone else does, if they don't play better, most of that's not really going to make much of a difference.
Yeah, I agree. I agree on that note of it's really hard whenever you're looking at, hey, look at the production that we're returning, or look at like all these guys that we're returning from a 5-7 team, like it's like it's hard to say that that's necessarily a good thing. But I think it is. I do think that you see them take a step forward because why wouldn't they, right? Like if you're bringing all those guys back, you have the continuity there that you just established. Like there's bound to be some improvement there. Really, the big question though is we need a lot of improvement there, and so that's a position where we really need a lot of improvement. Will it be enough of an improvement for what we need, or will it just be a slight improvement and still be a weaker position? So I think I'm confident there, but TBD on that.
Yeah, but so the only thing worse than bringing back the starters from a 5-7 team is bringing back the backups from a 5-7 team.
That's true. I think overall, I'm pretty bullish on the offensive line. I really like some of the young guys that they may not start. They could start with certain situations, but I really like Mark Naboo. I love what I've seen so far from Chase Pasanis. I heard the director of the Senior Bowl was on Andy Staples' new podcast, and he had been in our practice, and he was like, he's like, I'm not sure what the kid's name is, but 71 is a tackle for A&M, and he looks like he could be in in an NFL camp today if he wanted to. Like it seems like he's got the strength and the technique and just all the ability to be a top-notch offensive lineman. And it'd be great if he was coming off the bench for you and you were able to stick with Ruben and Zune. I think Zune in particular I think he's due for a big bounce back. When you hear about some of the things that he played through last year, it's pretty remarkable actually. But I'm a big fan of his, and I think Layden gets back to his normal self, and I think Cam Dewberry takes a big step forward.
Yeah, I mean, there's reasons. You talked about, Zune played very hurt last year. You're hearing rave reviews from him out of camp. Layden Robinson played hurt last year. Bryce Foster pretty much didn't play last year. So you can absolutely talk yourself into this thing looking much better this season. So let's just hope and pray that that comes to fruition.
It's kind of the crux of this whole offensive thing. Like if the offense has a pressure rate allowed like they did last year, it doesn't matter that we have Petrino and all these receivers because it's not going to work. But I think they're much better than they were last year. This is from @CyrilPaj on Twitter. What should fans expect to see that is different on offense? They note motions, formations, and tempo. I think the tempo piece, I think you do see a little bit more of that. I think all of it, but I think you definitely see motions and tempo out of this offense.
Yeah, I think you see all three of those. I really think motion and tempo are going to be the most evident, right? Like I think that's where you really see changes early on. I think the formation changes are going to come as the season progresses, and that goes back to what I was just saying a little bit ago. Of I really think that some of the big changes that we'll see really won't come into effect until we're playing from behind. We need to score quickly. And that's where I think you see some changes in formation in implementing there. But I think you see motions and tempo more than ever just right out of the gate.
Yeah. And that's what people ragged on Jimbo the most on last year, I feel like, because essentially it's like, if you're not using tempo, then it means you're pretty much allowing the defense to sub out whenever they want to. If you're not using any kind of preset motion, then you're not disguising anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you're just like all you're doing is just making it easier on the defense. And so I think those are two very simple things that I think we will see. That even if the offense was exactly the same, could make a big difference. The one other thing I'll add was, I know TexAgs had a interview with Evan Stewart. That was it was one of the free ones, so I'm not like divulging any paywall information. But he was talking about basically just like how much the focus is on explosive plays, and just as an A&M fan, I know like their whole point is to hype us up, but after seeing such a dearth of explosive plays for the past several years, that would be a welcome change.
Yeah. I think I spoke a little bit about this on the episode about the open practice, but It was tough to really gauge tempo because like they would like it was it was a practice. They weren't like actually like doing things like they would be during a game. As far as tempo goes, I do think you see a drastic reduction in delay of game penalties. I don't think like it's as frustrating as anything I've ever watched is not being able to, especially on the start of a drive, like not be able to get the call in and execute the play. Like I think that stuff is in the past. Thankfully so. But in terms of motions and formations, they did a ton of it in practice. Like almost every play they would motion Noah Thomas, they would motion Evan or Moose or like think about all the ways you can use Anias. Like you could put him in the backfield, motion him out to receiver, like give him like give the ball to him on a jet sweep. I think there's going to be a lot of creativity that you see, and in terms of formations, it may not stick out immediately because there's only so many that you can do. But I think more under center is what you're going to see. Maybe not all the time, or maybe not even a lot of the time, but you're going to see it more than we've seen, in the past couple of seasons, which is exciting for me because I think it's a good formation to run plays out of, and like in the run game and pass game.
Definitely.
HTX Ag 19, also known as Bryce Anderson Season on Twitter, great name. He asked about the confidence in the OL, but also at linebacker, which we haven't hit on yet.
Linebacker's tough because I feel like it's probably our thinnest position on the team. I think you know Edgerrin Cooper you can lock in as a starter. Outside of that, we all thought it would be Chris Russell. It sounds like maybe we might actually see Torian York there, and then you've got J.D. Davis, who's a transfer, Marshall Harris, a sophomore, and Damian Tanford, a freshman, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So it's scary. Like if there is a weakness of the defense, I think that's probably it.
Yeah, I'd agree there simply because of the lack of bodies at that position. But it's kind of reminiscent, and I'll mess up the year if I try to say it. But there was a year, I think it was when Buddy Johnson started, that we only had like 3 or 4 linebackers. Like we didn't have any there, and we saw a shift in our D line to where they really played a lot better than they had the year before. And so that's kind of more of what I'm wondering if we see, better run defense at the D line to where we don't have to rely on the linebackers as much. And in which case, if we do have that, right, that's a lot of ifs, but if we do have that, I think you could see some really good linebacker play because the year I'm talking about, again, I don't know which year it was. I just remember going into it thinking like we have like 3 linebackers and one of them gets hurt and there goes our season. And it ended up not being a problem at all because our D line really picked up the slack. So
I think in Jimbo's first season, what's his name? Anthony Hines tore his ACL in fall camp, and we had 3 scholarship linebackers after he went down. And Otaro Alaka and Tyrell Dotson played pretty much every snap on defense that season, and just true Iron Men, just gutting it out. I know Buddy Johnson got a little playing time in there too, but
that might have been the year I'm talking about.
It may have been because it was very, very thin, and it feels like back in the Sumlin days, like there was constantly like you're one injury away from a walk on getting in there. Mm-hmm. It's just not what you want in a league like this, but it's probably I think y'all are right. It's probably the position that I'm least confident in, and it's just because like the run defense was fairly poor last season. I'm kind of encouraged by Durkin taking that position over and being their coach, and calling the defense and things like that. So it's still TBD. My confidence is probably a 6-ish, 5 or 6, but hopeful, of course. A lot of these are kind of repeats. A lot about the O-line, run defense. Someone asked what the walkout song is going to be. Have we got any inside info there?
No.
Okay.
No idea.
Try that. Yeah, try that in a small town.
Yeah,
let's roll with it.
I'm just mad good. that you remember that guy that would comment on every single one of our videos, and God, it would be like it was like this long drawn out thing about like, does Texas A&M really stand for the racist and vulgar message that comes from Power by Kanye? And it was like just like he would like take snippets of the song Power and be like, this is what we run out to, and it was just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think
it's not that deep, bro.
Yeah. Like, it might mean too much to you, brother.
Yeah.
I think the song Bonfire by Childish Gambino, if it didn't have any words, like if words just didn't exist at all, like I know we play the instrumental, but like just like being associated with the words is probably it's probably a detriment to us having that song.
Yeah.
Let me fix my camera real quick.
Okay.
I'm not sure you guys saw that.
Yeah, but it would be perfect to have a song called Bonfire that we run out.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. Like the first 15 to 20 seconds of that song would be a great run out song. The problem is that what happens after that, and if you're trying to get away from being controversial with Kanye, that's not
the answer. Yeah, not at all. I love Childish Gambino, but that song is one that I could point to and be like, yeah, that one's probably not going to work for anybody.
Yeah. Just imagine like the old acts looking up the lyrics to that song after we play it on the intro. like what's this song about?
I am very interested though, because Ross Bjork came out and like it was kind of vague, saying like they were like working with an Aggie in the music industry on some like original music for it. So it's like I think everyone's kind of just holding their breath because it could be cool or it could be really cringy. So
I'm at like a 1 in terms of confidence.
I mean,
this is going to be good. I really hope it is, but
I just picture everybody running out to Granger Smith.
I want to say it was confirmed that it was like not a country artist.
I did see that. I think Josh Adams.
So that's at least like some level of encouragement, but yeah, it's like it still has high potential to fall on its face.
Yeah. Yeah. Dang it, Kanye! You got to ruin it for us. We had the perfect song.
just chill, bro. Just
be a normal person.
Yeah. Take your meds.
That about wraps it up. There was a question from Mike Grossman on Twitter. He asked, "Are we actually going to see Connor start game 1 this season?" Absolutely, yes.
Yes.
I know it's not announced at this point. Just given the context clues. Would be very shocked if he's not your starting quarterback this season. Love having Max as a backup. We talked about that a ton on here, but if it comes down to it, he has to get in the game. I feel pretty confident we can still execute things.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think every single media availability practice in the past 2 weeks, Connor's been running with the one. So that's either an incredible coincidence. Or it's, I mean, essentially, I feel like what we did the same the previous 2 years with Jimbo, where we, had a quote unquote fall camp QB competition when everyone knew
what it was,
who the starter was going to be.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully that starter performs a bit better than the past couple of years.
Yes, that is the hope. I think we're out of questions, but I had a question. And I think I may have teased this weeks ago on the show. But this question comes from my wife from a discussion that we had about Aggie football. And her question verbatim was just why. But to give it some context, why do we care so much? I think the her big thing was caring so much about reaching the top of the mountain, about winning a championship. And I'll let you guys chime in, but my retort basically, or my explanation of, why I feel this way is because of the position that A&M is in. If I had gone to college in some small school in Idaho, I wouldn't be like, you know what, I expect a national championship in my lifetime because it's just not feasible. But I know we don't have the history of actually crossing that threshold in the last 90 years. But with all the resources and the commitment and things like that, it'd be silly to not get your hopes up for that, or at least at least at least expect it. She just messaged me and said, "You're making me sound lame," but
Brittany's a loser. That sounds like a loser mentality that you don't want to win.
No, but I think you're absolutely right though, that like certainly as a college fan, you need to like temper your expectations based on like what's realistic. And yeah, and A&M's in that weird spot where it's like, if you look at history, you could say it's not realistic to expect a national championship because we haven't done it since before World War II, excuse me. But yeah, like all the ingredients are there. Like if you bring a coach in, like, and ask him, was like, what is Ohio State giving you that we aren't giving you here? I don't know what that answer would be. Like there's nothing, there's no resource, there's nothing, that other elite programs have that A&M is not providing as, to win. And so I don't think it's unrealistic for A&M fans to be upset with the recent results and to expect more.
Yeah, I think the why for me is that it's within reach. And of course, like at the very fundamental level, it's that, okay, I'm going to these games. I'm going to watch these games. I love A&M simply because I went there. So of course I'm going to love A&M. But I want to see, like, when I go to the game, I want to win, right? We went to the Rangers game thanks to Brittany, and we lost, and that was no fun, and so, yeah, I mean, that's a fundamental level. It's more fun to win, but I think it's more of that, hey, it's very possible for us to, and look, we could get one and then just wait 75 more years again, and get another one. That's fine with me. I don't care. As long as I get one
for one of them.
Then that's fun, just to say that I was there, and then we can, talk trash about that for the rest of our lives and be like, well, in 2023, we went to the national championship and we won,
Yeah.
Still got the shirt.
Well, I mean, hey, you look at Texas with like as storied a history as that team has. In the past 50 years, they've won a national title one time.
Yeah.
And so for the majority of their fan base, they've only seen one national title, but that, darned if they don't still beat their chests about it. 18 years later.
I guarantee like the big Texas fans watch that game every year. At least once a year they watch that game. I personally have watched that game like 20 times probably. It was a good game. It was a lot of fun. A lot of good talent there. So it's I also enjoy watching that with an A&M jersey,
I think things change. Like maybe, 20 years ago when we were in the Big 12 and, the athletic department was kind of a mess and no one's on the same page. Like, I think that, it was pretty far-fetched then, but with the move to the SEC, especially today, like it's one of the two true power conferences. Like we're in a good position. We've got, the resources and the money and the backing and the passion. One thing that makes me proud of my school is whenever we were terrible last year, the students still showed up. Like it was, we were 4-7, Thanksgiving weekend game, and LSU looked like a sellout crowd, and we upset a top 5 team in the country, and it's just cool. I wish I could just care about beating my rivals like most college football fans probably care about making a bowl game, beating your rival, and winning the bowl game. And I think that's fun for most fans. But for me, it's just, it's just pain until we get there, until we win that championship, or at least compete for one.
Well, now I'll add one other thing to it because like I love A&M. I love our traditions. I love like going to the football games are just incredible. So like I want more people to come to those games. You know, like I want more people outside of A&M to experience that. And so if we're not that great of a team and people talk trash about us, they're not going to enjoy it as much. If we're a really good team, like think about us when we go to Alabama or Tennessee, you know, how excited we get to go travel to those stadiums and see their traditions and see what that's like. We don't get hyped up for, you know, pretty mediocre teams, you know. So like if we're going to Houston, you know, I'm not going to be all just like, yeah, you know, I can't wait to see their stadium. But you know, that's just the way that it is. I will also say, like, yeah, Brittany is a known winner. She's not a loser. I was joking.
She's way more competitive than me.
She is way more competitive than me. Like we'll watch A&M games together, and she didn't even go to A&M, and she'll be more like yelling at the TV than I will, and I'm like, get them, you know. Like
her first ever A&M game was the year that we played Clemson at home, and she was like trash talking like the band. She's like, y'all's band sucks compared to ours, and like wanted to like fight the opposing fans. So I had to hold her back a little bit, but she did chime in like to clarify. I'll put it up here. More so, my question was, why doesn't it happen for A&M? And
wow.
I don't know if we have enough time to answer that.
That's one for the next question. Episode, because I have no idea.
We've all been asking that for quite a while now.
Yeah. Since 1939. Wasn't even born back then.
Can you imagine being a student back then and be like, yeah, we're going to be a powerhouse.
We're going to be on the television.
Yeah. But here's the thing, though. You say you were alive back then. Like, I feel like you wouldn't even get the full like appreciation of winning a national title because you're only seeing your games. Like you can't even probably watch other games on TV at that point.
Yeah. So like you might could listen to some on the radio.
They probably didn't know they won a national title until a month later when they got the trophy in the mail. So
back then,
certainly
it really
today,
like
this, you know, the enjoyment of college football, I feel like has never been higher, just because you can experience it so much more that you experience it not only in the stadium, you experience it on TV, and you experience it on social media. It's so much more of a communal experience, more so than it's ever been. So, I mean, that's part of what I love about it.
Me too.
Yeah, agreed. Appreciate you guys sitting down today and knocking this one out. I know it went a little bit longer than we anticipated, but I had to get Brittany's question in there at the end because she's been
the first ever podcast to run long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We've never done that before.
No. I think she just wants me to be happy. She wants A&M to win a championship, so I'll be happy.
I also want you to be happy by A&M winning the championship.
It'd make us all happy.
Very selfless of me to want that for you.
Yeah. You're a great guy, Chase. Well, the next time you hear from us, it will be game week. We'll be talking about all the big week 1 games, maybe going over some week 0 action. A couple of big teams are in action this weekend. Maybe Notre Dame stumbles out of the gate. I think we'd all like to see that. Robert, I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely, guys. Anytime.
All right. He's Robert Behrens. He is Chase Caldwell. I'm Will Stone, and we will talk to you next week.